The ripples reached the children at Unity too. Caleb, now walking with a cane, thanks to months of therapy Miles had helped fund, grinned whenever Miles visited. "You're my hero, Mr. Miles," he said one day, and Miles knelt beside him, his throat tight. "No, kiddo, you're mine." The bond, forged in vulnerability, became a cornerstone of Miles's new life, a reminder that redemption wasn't a finish line, but a daily choice. As winter settled over Seattle, Elite Velocity Motors hosted its first Open Doors Day, inviting the public to explore the showroom regardless of intent to buy. Liam organized it, Miles championed it, and Zara and Julian attended, their presence a quiet endorsement. Families wandered in, some awed, others hesitant, but all were met with smiles and stories, not sales pitches. A single mother, marveling at the Eclipse Phantom, told Liam, "I never thought I'd feel welcome here." He nodded, his heart full. That's the point. The day ended with a small ceremony, Miles unveiling a plaque. "Dedicated to unity where worth begins." Zara's eyes glistened as she read it, Julian's hand resting on her shoulder. The ripples of their journey had become waves, touching lives they'd never imagined. By spring, the changes sparked by Zara's encounter at Elite Velocity Motors had taken root, blossoming into a movement that transcended Seattle. The dealership's contract with Horizon Dynamics solidified its revival, a steady stream of orders ensuring financial stability, while Miles and Liam's reforms kept its soul intact. Customers became advocates, sharing tales of a place where luxury met humanity, and competitors took note, some grudgingly adopting similar policies to keep pace. Miles found himself at the helm of a quiet revolution, his past a shadow he no longer feared. He wrote a letter to the Unity Collective's newsletter, a public reflection titled, "The Man I Was, the Man I Am." "I judged Zara Phillips by what I saw," he confessed, "and lost everything to learn she was more than I could ever be. She didn't break me, she built me back better." Readers flooded Unity with responses, some forgiving, others challenging, but all engaged a dialogue Miles welcomed. Liam, now a rising star, spoke at a youth leadership summit, his shy demeanor replaced by a quiet confidence. "I was afraid to act," he told the teens, "but silence isn't neutral, it's a choice. Speak up, even when it shakes you." A girl in the front row asked how he found the courage, and he smiled. "I saw someone braver than me, Zara, and I couldn't look away." His words inspired a wave of student-led projects, proving the incident's legacy reached even the next generation. Elliot Vaughn, once a reluctant bystander, became an active ally. He partnered with Unity to sponsor a scholarship for underrepresented youth, naming it after Zara. At its launch, he stood beside her, his voice steady. "I failed you once, Zara. I won't again." She nodded, her forgiveness a bridge he crossed daily. The scholarship's first recipient, a bright-eyed girl named Aisha, thanked them both, her dream of engineering now within reach, a tangible outcome of their shared journey. Zara and Julian's work with Unity soared. Voices of Value went national, with chapters sprouting in cities like Chicago and Atlanta. Zara traveled tirelessly, her story a rallying cry, while Julian's tech innovations, free apps for mental health support, complemented her efforts. At a gala in New York, she received an award for social impact, her speech simple, yet piercing. "Compassion isn't weakness, it's the strongest force we have. I learned that from Miles, from Liam, from all of you." The crowd rose, a testament to her reach. One summer day, the four reunited at Unity's Tacoma campus for a picnic with the children. Caleb raced to Miles, his cane a blur, and hugged him tight. Sophie, now more confident, showed Zara a drawing of them together. Liam and Julian tossed a frisbee, laughter echoing through the trees. As the sun dipped low, they sat in a circle, The kids sprawled around them and reflected. Zara Phillips, now 34, had become a national figure, her name synonymous with resilience and grace. The Unity Collective's Voices of Value campaign had grown into a movement, with chapters in over 20 states. She traveled often, her speeches a blend of storytelling and challenge, urging audiences to see beyond surfaces. At a conference in Denver, she stood before a sea of faces, her teal scarf a nod to the gala where Miles had found redemption. "We don't heal by hiding," she said, her voice clear. "We heal by facing what's broken together." A man in the crowd, a store owner, later confessed he'd turned away customers like Miles once had. "I'm changing that," he promised. And Zara knew the echoes were still spreading. Julian Phillips, 41, remained her steadfast partner, his tech empire a backbone for their shared mission. Horizon Dynamics launched Connect for Good, a program donating devices to rural schools, ensuring kids like those at Unity had access to the world. At a launch event, he stood beside Zara, his pride in her palpable. "She's the heart of this," he told the press, his arm around her. "I just build the tools." But his vision was more than tools. It was a belief that technology could level fields, a legacy he and Zara crafted side by side. The children of Unity remained their North Star. Caleb, now 12, walked with confidence, his cane a badge of triumph. Sophie, 11, had taken up painting, her works adorning the center's walls. Miles visited often, his bond with them unbreakable. One afternoon, as he helped Caleb with a science project, the boy grinned. "You're still my hero, Mr. Miles." Miles ruffled his hair, his voice thick. "And you're mine, buddy." The moment was small, but it anchored him, a thread connecting his past to his present. One evening, as rain tapped against Unity's windows, Zara gathered Miles, Liam, and Julian for a quiet dinner. They sat around a wooden table, the warmth of shared history filling the room. "10 years ago, I walked into that dealership," Zara began, her eyes tracing their faces. "I thought it was the end of something. It was the start." Miles nodded, his glass raised. "To second chances and the people who give them." Liam's smile was soft. "To standing up, even when it's hard." Julian's gaze met Zara's, steady and sure. "To building what lasts." The clink of their glasses was a promise, a vow. To keep the echoes alive, reaching further than they'd ever dreamed. A decade after the incident at Elite Velocity Motors, its legacy had woven itself into the fabric of countless lives, a light that refused to dim. Seattle had changed dealerships across the city, adopted inclusivity charters inspired by Miles and Liam's work, their once rigid cultures bending toward equity. Elite Velocity itself thrived, its profits steady, but its purpose deeper, a place where luxury met humanity in equal measure. Miles Donovan, now 57, had stepped into a role as an elder statesman of sorts, his office walls lined with letters from dealers nationwide who'd followed his lead. "You showed us," one read, "that business can be more than money." He kept them as reminders, not trophies. Liam Hayes, at 32, had become a sought-after voice in corporate ethics, his journey from silent observer to changemaker, a story told in boardrooms and classrooms alike. He'd married a teacher named Aisha, ironically, the first recipient of Eliot's scholarship, and their home buzzed with the laughter of a toddler, a new chapter rooted in the values he'd fought for. At a university lecture, he showed a photo of Zara from that first gala, her smile radiant. "She didn't just teach me courage," he said. "She taught me hope." The students applauded, and Liam felt the weight of a baton passed not just to him, but to them. Elliot Vaughn, 62, had found peace in his later years, his wealth now a river, feeding Unity's growth. He'd funded a new wing at the Tacoma Center, a space for art and music where Sophie, now 16, taught younger kids to paint. At its opening, he stood beside Zara, his eyes misty. "I was late to this," he said, "but I'm here." She hugged him, her forgiveness a constant that had guided him from shadow to light. Julian broke the silence, his voice warm. "We started with a fight we didn't choose. Look where it brought us." Miles nodded, his eyes on Caleb. "I thought I'd lost it all. Turns out I found it." Liam grinned, a rare lightness in him. "We're a team now. That's what sticks." Zara's gaze swept over them, her heart full. "It's not about where we began. It's where we're going." Together, the children cheered, oblivious to the weight of the moment. But the adults felt it, a bond forged in struggle, now unbreakable. Their story had become a beacon, a proof that from one act of cruelty could spring 1,000 acts of grace. As night fell, they watched the stars emerge, each knowing their work wasn't done. The world still held shadows, but they'd lit a flame, one that would grow, carried by those they'd touched, a legacy of compassion stretching far beyond the horizon. Years had passed since the pivotal confrontation at Elite Velocity Motors, yet its echoes reverberated through Seattle and beyond, a testament to the enduring power of a single moment, transformed by courage and compassion. By the time autumn painted the city in shades of amber and crimson, the dealership stood as a cornerstone of a quiet cultural shift in the luxury auto world. Miles Donovan, now 52, had become a figure of quiet renown, not for his sales acumen, but for his role in redefining what prestige could mean. The showroom, once a bastion of exclusivity, now bore a mural commissioned from a local artist, silhouettes of diverse faces, beneath the words, "Worth is universal," a daily reminder of the journey that had reshaped it. Miles's days were no longer consumed by quotas or commissions. Instead, he spent them mentoring staff and speaking at community forums. His hair had grayed further, his sharp features softened by time and introspection. But his eyes carried a spark of purpose that hadn't dimmed. At a regional diversity summit, he shared the stage with industry leaders, his voice steady as he recounted his fall and rise. "I used to think I was protecting a standard," he said, pausing as the audience leaned in. "I was just hiding behind it. Zara Phillips didn't just call me out. She called me forward. That's a debt I'll spend my life repaying." The applause was warm, but it was the questions afterward that moved him most. A young dealer from Tacoma, barely older than Liam had been, approached with a notepad. "How do you change a culture that's been one way forever?" he asked, earnestness in his eyes. Miles smiled, a rare softness breaking through. "One person at a time. Start with yourself. Listen, admit when you're wrong. Then keep going. It's slow, but it sticks." The young man nodded, scribbling furiously, and Miles felt a flicker of pride, not for himself, but for the possibility he'd helped ignite. Liam Hayes, now 27, had risen to a role few could have predicted. As Elite Velocity Motors Director of Community Engagement, he bridged the dealership with the city, forging partnerships with schools and nonprofits. His once timid voice now carried authority, honed by years of standing up for what mattered. One crisp morning, he visited a high school in Rainier Valley, speaking to a class of teens about equity. "I watched someone get hurt because I didn't act," he told them, his gaze steady. "That taught me silence isn't safety, it's surrender. You've got power in your voice. Use it." A girl in the back raised her hand. Her question, sharp, "What if no one listens?" Liam's answer was simple. "Keep talking. Someone will." Elliot Vaughn, at 57, had retired from day-to-day management, passing the reins to a younger team shaped by Miles and Liam's vision. But retirement didn't mean retreat. He'd taken up a role as a Unity Collective board member, his wealth and influence now tools for the cause he'd once ignored. At a board meeting, he proposed a new initiative mobile workshops teaching trades to underserved youth, inspired by Zara's belief in opportunity for all. I spent decades building a name, he told the group, his voice gruff but sincere. Now I want it to mean something beyond me. Zara, seated across from him, nodded, her approval a quiet victory for the man who'd once stood by while she suffered. Zara Phillips, 39, stood at the helm of a Unity collective that spanned continents, its programs in Africa and Asia echoing her Ghanaian roots. She'd written a memoir, Beyond the Surface, a bestseller that wove her story with lessons of compassion. At a signing in London, a reader asked, "How do you keep believing in people?" Zara's answer was soft but firm. "Because I've seen them change, Miles, Liam, even myself. That's enough." Her words carried the weight of experience, a beacon for a world still grappling with division. Julian Phillips, 46, had steered Horizon Dynamics to new heights, its social impact arm a global force. He'd launched a foundation in Nia's name, funding cancer research, a tribute to the sister whose fight had sparked it all. At its gala, he and Zara danced under twinkling lights, their partnership a quiet marvel. "You're my compass," he whispered, and she smiled, knowing they'd navigated storms together. The children of Unity had grown, their lives intertwined with those who'd shaped them. Caleb, 17, studied engineering, his dreams fueled by Miles's encouragement. Sophie's art had won awards, her latest piece a portrait of Zara hanging in the center's lobby. At a reunion picnic, they gathered with Miles, Liam and their families, the air thick with nostalgia. Caleb raised a soda, grinning. "To the people who didn't give up on us or each other." Miles laughed, his eyes crinkling. "To the kids." "Who saved me?" Liam's toddler tugged at his sleeve and he added, "To tomorrow may it be kinder." Zara's voice was a whisper, her heart full. "To light, however small, it grows." Julian sealed it with a toast, "To us, all of us." As dusk settled, they watched fireworks bloom over the sound, each burst a celebration of a journey that had begun with pain, but ended in promise. Their story wasn't just theirs anymore. It was a spark carried by countless others, a light undimmed by time, proving that from one act of grace could spring a world of change. Under the sprawling canopy of a crisp Seattle evening, where the city's skyline glimmered against the Puget Sound, a woman stepped into the sleek, modern expanse of Elite Velocity Motors, a dealership renowned for its curated collection of high-end automobiles. She wore a simple outfit, faded black jeans paired with a loose-fitting beige sweater, unremarkable amid the showroom's polished grandeur. Her name was Zara Phillips, a 29-year-old woman of Ghanaian heritage. Her chestnut, curls tied back in a practical bun. Zara's mission was specific. She sought the rare Eclipse Phantom, a limited edition sedan she intended as a gift for her younger sister, Nia, who had recently triumphed over a 2-year struggle with lymphoma. The showroom was a cathedral of luxury, its gleaming tile floors reflecting the soft glow of recessed lighting. Cars sat like sculptures on display, each a testament to wealth and exclusivity. Their price tags whispered in hushed tones among the elite. As Zara's eyes scanned the space, searching for the Eclipse Phantom, she drew the attention of Miles Donovan, the 47-year-old sales manager. Clad in a charcoal pinstripe suit, Miles carried an air of self-assured authority, his silver-flecked hair combed back meticulously. His sharp blue eyes appraised Zara in an instant, lingering on her modest attire with a flicker of contempt. Before she could speak, he approached, his stride deliberate, arms folded across his chest. "Good evening," Miles began, his voice, slicing through the ambient murmur of the showroom, tinged with a condescension that turned heads. "I'm afraid you might have taken a wrong turn," This isn't the kind of place for, well, someone like you. Our inventory is tailored to a more discerning clientele. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable browsing our pre-owned lot." He waved, a hand toward a discreet corner of the dealership, his lips twitching into a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. A ripple of stifled laughter spread among the staff, their gazes darting toward Zara with a mix of amusement and curiosity. Customers milling about paused, their attention drawn to the unfolding scene, amplifying the sting of Miles's words. Zara felt a flush creep up her neck, her pulse quickening under the weight of public scrutiny. Yet she steadied herself, her voice calm and measured as she replied, "Thank you for the suggestion, but I'm here to ask about the Eclipse Phantom in Shadow Grey. It's for a special occasion." Miles's eyebrows arched, his skepticism morphing into mockery. He let out a short, barking laugh, shaking his head as if she'd uttered something absurd. "The Eclipse Phantom? That's a limited-run model, reserved exclusively for our VIP. Clients those with confirmed pre-orders. I'm sorry, but you're not on that list. Maybe stick to dreaming from the sidewalk." His words reverberated through the showroom, drawing more stares, the air thickening with unspoken judgment. Zara stood her ground, her poise unshaken, despite the tremor in her chest. She was no stranger to being underestimated years of navigating. Subtle and overt biases had honed her resilience, but this blatant dismissal, delivered with such theatrical cruelty, pierced deeper. She took a slow breath, meeting Miles's gaze with eyes that held both determination and a quiet ache. "I understand," she said softly, then turned toward the exit, her steps deliberate as she crossed the polished floor. The weight of every onlooker's stare pressed against her, but she refused to let it fracture her dignity. Unbeknownst to Miles, this moment was the spark of a reckoning that would soon upend his world. From a shadowed corner of the showroom, a young salesman named Liam Hayes watched in silence. At 22, Liam was a newcomer to Elite Velocity Motors, his earnest demeanor often clashing with the dealership's ruthless ethos. His hazel eyes flickered between Miles and Zara, a knot of unease tightening in his gut. He shifted uncomfortably, wanting to speak, to call out the injustice, but fear anchored him in place. Fear of risking his tenuous foothold in this cutthroat world. Miles, oblivious to Liam's internal struggle, pressed his assault, his voice rising for maximum impact. "Look, miss, our cars start at $750,000. I'd recommend saving us all the trouble and finding a more suitable venue." His colleague snickered, feeding off his bravado, while Zara's hands clenched briefly at her sides. She fought to preserve her composure, her voice unwavering as she countered. "I'm not here to waste time, Mr. Donovan. I'd like details on the Eclipse Phantom." Her quiet defiance only stoked Miles's irritation. He stepped closer, his tone dropping to a cold, cutting edge. "I've been clear. These cars aren't for dreamers. Leave now, or I'll have security escort you out." The threat lingered, a final jab meant to shatter her resolve. Zara's gaze locked with his, and in his eyes, she saw not just prejudice, but a man consumed by his need to dominate, to define worth through wealth and appearances. The showroom hushed, the laughter fading into an awkward stillness. Employees exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the shift in gravity. Zara inhaled deeply, her voice slicing through the quiet. "Mr. Donovan, I hope you'll one day reconsider how you treat people." With that, she turned and walked toward the Izuo, glass doors, her head high despite the storm raging within. As the doors slid shut behind her, she paused briefly, imprinting the moment in her mind, a wound that would soon fuel a greater purpose. Miles watched her depart, a smug satisfaction glinting in his eyes, blind to the fault lines he'd just exposed. He turned to his team, chuckling. Some people don't know their lane. But Liam, still rooted in his corner, felt a surge of guilt. He knew this was wrong, yet his silence made him complicit a realization that gnawed at him as the showroom resumed its rhythm. Outside, Zara emerged into the cool Seattle air, the city's hum a stark contrast to the sterile opulence she'd left behind. She wasn't just any woman. She was Zara Phillips, co-founder of the Unity Collective, a nonprofit that had transformed countless lives across the Pacific Northwest. 12 years earlier, at 17, she'd been a prodigy in environmental law, working for a prestigious firm in Portland, but a chance encounter volunteering at a youth shelter had redirected her path. She'd forsaken her high-flying career to establish Unity, channeling her energy and resources into education, healthcare, and advocacy for the underserved, giving voice to those society often ignored. Few knew the breadth of her story. Zara was also the wife of Julian Phillips, a 36-year-old tech titan whose company, Horizon Dynamics, had redefined global connectivity. With a fortune in the tens of billions, Julian could have embraced a life of extravagance. Yet he and Zara chose humility, their wealth a means to uplift, rather than a marker of status. They'd met at a conference on sustainable development in Vancouver, their connection forged over a shared dream of a world rooted in equity. Their decade-long partnership was a union of purpose, not privilege. Zara had come to Elite Velocity Motors not for vanity, but to honor Nia's courage. The Eclipse Phantom was to be a symbol of her sister's victory, a tangible testament to life reclaimed. Miles's rejection, steeped in her unassuming appearance and skin color, had crushed that intent, but it also kindled a fire within her. As she walked away, her heart heavy yet resolute, she knew this wasn't just about her. It was a call to confront a deeper wrong, one that demanded more than personal redress. The next morning, as dawn painted Seattle's skyline in hues of gold and amber, a sleek Bentley Mulsanne, valued at over $3 million, glided to a halt before Elite Velocity Motors. Its obsidian finish gleamed like a mirror, drawing awed stares from the staff within. Miles Donovan, peering through the showroom's glass facade, felt an unfamiliar pang of unease ripple through him. The rear door opened, and out stepped a figure that erased his smug grin in an instant. His breath hitched as recognition struck, replaced by a chilling wave of dread. Inside the dealership the previous day, the confrontation had unfolded with stark clarity. Zara had entered with purpose, her modest attire belying the strength she carried. She was accustomed to being misjudged. Years of navigating bias had forged her into a woman of quiet steel. But Miles's venomous dismissal had been a public spectacle, a wound inflicted with precision. As she'd stood there, seeking the Eclipse Phantom, Miles's disdain had been immediate and unrelenting, his words a weapon wielded with relish. Liam Hayes had watched from the sidelines, his discomfort mounting with every barb Miles threw. The young salesman's hands fidgeted at his sides, his conscience wrestling with his silence. He'd seen Miles's bias before, snap judgments based on race or attire, but this felt different, a violation of something sacred. As Zara turned to leave, her dignity intact despite the assault, Liam's guilt deepened. He'd done nothing, and that inaction gnawed at him like a persistent ache. Miles, meanwhile, had leaned against a polished Maserati, basking in his perceived triumph. "Can't stand people who think they can waltz in here," he muttered to a junior salesman, Owen, who chuckled in agreement. She couldn't afford a tire, let alone a car. Miles's eyes sparkled with self-assured glee, blind to the storm he'd just ignited. But Liam lingered near the reception desk, his unease growing. As Miles greeted a wealthy couple, the Prestons, with exaggerated warmth, offering them the very Eclipse Phantom he'd denied Zara, Liam's resolve hardened. The hypocrisy was glaring, and it fueled a quiet determination within him. Now, as the Bentley Mulsanne idled outside, Julian Phillips emerged, his presence a force of nature. At 36, Julian carried himself with a quiet gravitas, his tailored black, sweet accentuating his tall frame, his deep brown eyes piercing with intent. The staff froze, recognizing the tech mogul whose influence could shift industries with a single decision. Miles hurried to the entrance, his mind racing. Julian Phillips, the Julian Phillips was here. And the timing was no accident. Elliot Vaughn, the 52-year-old owner of Elite Velocity Motors, emerged from his office, his usual composure fraying at the edges. Adjusting his silk tie, he joined Miles, his voice tight with apprehension. "Mr. Phillips, what an honor!" Julian stepped into the showroom, his footsteps resounding in the hushed space. He paused, surveying the room, before locking eyes with Miles. "I'm here to address yesterday," he said, his voice deep and unyielding. "Which one of you is Miles Donovan?" Miles swallowed hard, forcing a smile that faltered at the edges. "Mr. Phillips, I'm Miles Donovan. How can I assist you today?" His tone was polite, but his hands betrayed him, trembling faintly. Julian's expression remained impassive, his gaze cutting through Miles's facade. "Yesterday, my wife, Zara Phillips, came here to inquire about the Eclipse Phantom. You insulted her publicly, dismissed her based on her appearance and race. I want an explanation now." The word struck like a thunderbolt, draining the color from Miles's face. His mind scrambled for a defense, but none came. Elliot stepped forward, his voice unsteady. "Mr. Phillips, I assure you, this was a misunderstanding. Miles didn't mean—" Julian raised a hand, silencing him with a gesture. "This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was discrimination, deliberate and disgraceful. Elite Velocity Motors prides itself on prestige. But if that prestige is built on disrespect, I'll ensure the world knows exactly what this place stands for." The threat hung heavy, a promise of consequences neither Miles nor Elliot could dismiss. Employees shifted uncomfortably, the air thick with tension. Julian gestured toward Elliot's office. "We need to discuss this privately. Now." With no choice, Miles and Elliot followed, their steps hesitant, their futures teetering on a precipice. In the office, Julian stood at the center, his presence commanding the room. Miles avoided his gaze, sweat beading on his brow, while Elliot clasped his hands, desperate to salvage the situation. Julian spoke, his voice steady but edged with steel. "I'm not here for vengeance. I'm here because what happened to Zara cannot be ignored. She came to buy a car, a gift for her sister, and was humiliated for no reason other than prejudice." Elliot stammered, "Mr. Phillips, we deeply regret any offense. We didn't know who she was." "That's the issue," Julian cut in, his tone sharp. "Her worth shouldn't hinge on who she is to me or anyone else. You judged her by her clothes and skin, not her character or intent. That's not a mistake, it's a failure of principles." Opening the office door, Julian addressed the showroom, his voice carrying to every corner. "Yesterday, a woman entered this dealership to purchase the Eclipse Phantom. She was mocked and dismissed because she didn't fit your image of wealth. That woman was Zara Phillips, my wife, and the co-founder of the Unity Collective, a woman who's dedicated her life to uplifting others. Your manager, Miles Donovan, chose arrogance over decency." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Miles shrank under the weight of accusing eyes, his bravado crumbling. Elliot's face paled as the reality sank in. This wasn't just a customer dispute. It was a public reckoning. Julian turned to Miles, and his gaze unrelenting. "You didn't just hurt Zara. You insulted every person who's been judged unfairly. Tell me, Miles, do you believe a person's value lies in their appearance or their race?" Miles's mouth opened, but no words emerged. His defenses had evaporated, leaving him exposed. The silence stretched, suffocating, until Julian spoke. Again. Elite Velocity Motors needs to decide what it stands for. I hope this is a lesson in respect, because I won't let it be forgotten. With that, Julian left, the door closing behind him with a soft thud. The showroom erupted in whispers, the weight of his words settling over everyone. Miles stood motionless, his world unraveling, while Elliot grappled with the fallout. But the story was far from over. In the wake of Julian's departure, the atmosphere in Elite Velocity Motors thickened with a tension that felt almost tangible. Employees stood frozen, their eyes darting between one another, the echoes of Julian's stern words reverberating in their minds. Miles Donovan remained rooted in the center of the showroom, his face ashen, his once confident posture reduced to a slump. Everything he'd built his career, his reputation, his sense of self seemed to fracture before him, leaving a hollow chill in its wake. Elliot Vaughn lingered nearby, his mind racing with a torrent of anxious thoughts. He knew a scandal of this magnitude could dismantle the dealership's prestige, a legacy he'd spent decades cultivating. He searched for words to diffuse the situation, but the moment had slipped beyond his grasp. Amid the oppressive silence, a young voice cut through the haze, clear and resolute. "I have something to say." All heads turned toward the back of the room, where Liam Hayes stepped forward. The 22-year-old salesman, typically reserved and unassuming, now stood with a fire in his eyes, his hands clenched tightly at his sides. His youthful face flushed with a mix of nerves and determination, but his courage was unmistakable. Miles's head snapped up, a cold dread pooling in his stomach. He'd always dismissed Liam as inconsequential, a quiet cog in the machine. But now the young man's gaze bore into him with unsettling intensity. Elliot frowned, his unease deepening, as the situation spiraled further. He raised a hand, his voice strained. "Liam, this isn't the time." "No," Liam interrupted, his tone firm and unwavering. "It's exactly the time. I saw everything yesterday, and I can't stay silent anymore." His eyes locked onto Miles, stripping away any pretense. "I need to speak because I witnessed it all." Miles felt a surge of panic, his worst fear materializing a credible witness stepping into the light. Liam continued, his voice trembling with emotion but steady in its conviction. "Yesterday, I saw Miles Donovan publicly insult and discriminate against Mrs. Zara Phillips solely because of her skin color and appearance. He lied to her, claiming the Eclipse Phantom was reserved for VIPs, then turned around and offered it to a wealthy white couple, the Prestons, minutes after she left. The accusation landed like a sledgehammer, shattering Miles's flimsy justifications. Each word from Liam drove a nail into the coffin of his defenses, leaving no room for doubt. The showroom grew deathly still, some employees lowering their heads in shame, others staring at Liam with a mix of admiration and shock. This was a side of him they'd never seen, a quiet soul transformed into a beacon of truth. Miles scrambled for a response, his voice shaky and unconvincing. "Liam, you've misunderstood. It was just a minor incident, I didn't—" Liam cut him off, his resolve hardening. "No, Miles, I didn't misunderstand. I know exactly what I saw, and I know why you did it. You think you can judge someone's worth by their clothes or their race. This wasn't an incident, it was a deliberate act of prejudice." The finality of Liam's words left the room in stunned silence. Elliot dropped his gaze, the weight of his complicity pressing down on him. He'd backed Miles, hoping to preserve the dealership's image, but now that decision loomed as a grave error. Miles stood frozen, his mind reeling, fully aware that his career and reputation were crumbling before him. Liam had dismantled him with nothing but the truth and a courage Miles had never anticipated. Turning to Elliot, Liam spoke with a seriousness that belied his age. "Mr. Vaughn, Elite Velocity Motors needs to rethink how we treat people and who we put in charge. I can't keep working somewhere that tolerates this. His words were a clarion call, a demand for accountability that resonated with everyone present. His bravery marked a turning point, drawing a stark line between right and wrong. Miles remained still, the reality sinking in he'd lost everything: his standing, his credibility, the trust of those around him. And the one who'd brought him down was Liam Hayes, the unassuming salesman he'd underestimated, now a quiet hero whose voice had changed the game. Days later, Zara welcomed Miles to the Unity Collective's headquarters in Tacoma, a modest campus nestled among evergreen trees. He arrived a shadow of his former self, his tailored suits replaced by plain slacks and a sweater, his arrogance stripped away. Zara greeted him with a warmth that caught him off guard, her eyes free of bitterness. "This isn't about punishment," she said gently. "It's about growth." Miles's first assignment was assisting volunteers at a rehabilitation center for children with disabilities, a world far removed from his past life of luxury sales. He struggled at first, his hands clumsy as he guided wheelchairs or helped with meals. The children, with their wide eyes and quiet resilience, unnerved him, their needs starkly contrasting the polished clients he'd once courted. On his first day, he faltered while aiding a girl named Sophie, who used a walker due to spina bifida, nearly dropping a tray of food. Frustration flared, but Zara's steady presence intervened, her voice calm yet firm. "Miles, they don't need pity. They need patience and genuine care. I know it's hard, but I believe you can do this." Her words pierced him, a mirror to the contempt he'd once shown her. Shame washed over him, and for the first time, he saw the consequences of his past through the innocent gazes around him. Over the following days, he pushed through the discomfort, learning their names: Sophie, Caleb, Maya, and their stories. Each child carried a strength he'd never known, a resilience that humbled him. One afternoon, while helping Caleb, a boy with cerebral palsy, practice standing, Caleb gripped Miles's hand and rasped, "Thanks, Mr. Miles." The simple gratitude cracked something deep within him, tears prickling his eyes as he realized the depth of his former blindness. At Unity, Miles began to change. The impatience faded, replaced by a tentative warmth. He arrived early, stayed late, pouring himself into the work with a sincerity he hadn't known he possessed. The children became his teachers, their purity, dismantling the walls he'd built over years of pride and prejudice. Months later, the Unity Collective hosted its annual gala at a waterfront hotel in Seattle, a celebration of compassion attended by philanthropists, activists, and media. The venue glowed with understated elegance, reflecting Zara's vision of substance over flash. Miles arrived early, no longer in the flashy attire of his past, but in a simple blazer, his role as a volunteer now a badge of honor. His eyes, once cold, now carried a genuine light, a transformation his former colleagues at Elite Velocity Motors might scarcely recognize. As he adjusted table settings, Zara entered, her presence drawing every eye. She wore a flowing teal dress, her curls cascading softly, embodying grace without ostentation. Miles paused, his heart quickening as she approached with a warm smile. "Miles, I'm so glad you're here," she said, her voice sincere. "Your work lately, it's been remarkable." Miles ducked his head, a flush of humility coloring his cheeks. "Zara, I'm the one who should thank you. What I've found here, it's changed me." His words carried a weight of truth, a confession of a man reborn. Zara's gaze softened, seeing the depth of his shift. She rested a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of trust. "I know it hasn't been easy, but you've stayed. You've tried. That's what counts. We all deserve a chance if we're willing to take it. Overwhelmed, Miles took a steadying breath, his eyes glistening with regret and gratitude. Zara, I need to apologize again. I was blind, arrogant, full of prejudice. You, Julian, and these kids, you've shown me what really matters. I can't undo what I did, but I'm so grateful for this chance. Zara smiled, shaking her head gently. Miles, recognizing your mistakes and working to change, that's enough for me. I forgive you, and I hope you can forgive yourself. Her words lifted a burden he'd carried too long, a peace settling into his soul. Julian approached then, having overheard the exchange. He clapped Miles on the shoulder, his voice warm. Miles, I'm proud of your growth. You're ready to step back into your world, but with a new heart. Miles blinked, stunned. Mr. Phillips, you really think so? After everything? Julian nodded firmly. I believe in redemption. To prove it, I'm offering Elite Velocity Motors a contract to supply Horizon Dynamics fleet. Use it to show the world who you've become. Miles's throat tightened, his eyes reddening. I won't let you down, I promise. Zara and Julian smiled, their faith in him a gift he vowed to honor. Back at Elite Velocity Motors, Miles met with Elliot, sharing his journey and proposing a bold shift, making the dealership a leader in combating discrimination. Initially wary, Elliot relented under the pressure of the scandal and Miles's conviction. Under Miles's guidance, the dealership launched sensitivity training, with Miles leading sessions, sharing his story from Unity. His vulnerability reshaped the staff's perspectives, turning a culture of elitism into one of inclusion. Elliot, recognizing Liam's pivotal role, promoted him to oversee fairness policies. Liam excelled, partnering with Miles to forge a new ethos. From adversaries, they became allies, their friendship a cornerstone of the dealership's renewal. Elite Velocity Motors regained its footing, its reputation reborn as a symbol of equality. Zara and Julian deepened Unity's mission, the incident at Elite Velocity Motors revealing persistent biases they vowed to dismantle. They expanded community programs, with Zara speaking at national forums, her voice inspiring thousands. Julian leveraged his resources to amplify her work, their partnership a force for lasting change. One crisp afternoon, at a Unity event, Zara, Julian, Miles, and Liam stood together, laughing over shared memories. Julian grinned at Miles. You've done well. The hardest lessons bring the greatest growth. Miles nodded, his heart light. You and Zara taught me what matters most. Zara added softly, we've all learned from each other. Faith in people it's worth holding on to. In that moment, they saw their journey's beauty, a path from pain to purpose, a testament to compassion's power to heal and transform. The transformation of Elite Velocity Motors unfolded like a quiet revolution in the months that followed. Miles Donovan, once the embodiment of cold ambition, became a catalyst for change, his leadership rooted in the lessons of unity. The dealership's training programs expanded, drawing experts to educate staff on empathy and equity. Customers noticed the shift, warm welcomes replaced icy appraisals, and the showroom buzzed with a new energy. Elite Velocity Motors didn't just recover its reputation. It redefined it, becoming a beacon of progress in Seattle's luxury market. Liam Hayes, now a key figure in the dealership's evolution, worked alongside Miles with a fervor that belied his youth. His initiative's anonymous feedback systems, diversity workshops, ensured every client felt valued. The duo's partnership, forged from conflict, became a model of collaboration, their shared vision rippling through the staff. Employees who'd once laughed at Miles's cruelty now admired his humility, a testament to the power of authentic change. Zara and Julian Phillips watched from afar, their focus on unity unwavering. The incident at Elite Velocity Motors had exposed a truth they couldn't ignore prejudice lingered even in polished corners of society. It fueled their resolve, pushing Unity to launch citywide campaigns on inclusion. Zara's speeches at conferences drew standing ovations, her story of resilience and forgiveness striking chords nationwide. Julian poured Horizon Dynamics resources into these efforts, funding scholarships and community centers, their partnership a quiet force reshaping lives. For Miles, every day began with gratitude. He often returned to Unity, not out of duty but desire, the children's laughter a balm. To his once hardened heart, Sophie, Caleb, and the others had become his anchors, their trust a reminder of the man he'd become. One evening, as he helped Caleb with a puzzle, the boy grinned up at him. "You're my best friend, Mr. Miles." The words, simple and pure, solidified a truth Miles clung to. He'd been given a gift he'd never repay. At Unity's next gala, the four Zara, Julian, Miles, and Liam reunited, their bond a tapestry of shared growth. Standing on a balcony overlooking the Sound, they reflected on their path. Julian's voice was warm. "Miles, you've turned pain into purpose. That's no small thing." Miles smiled, his eyes soft. "You gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it. That's everything." Zara's gaze swept over them, her voice tender. "We've built something real together. That's what lasts." Liam nodded, his quiet strength shining. "It's about doing right, even when it's hard." Their story, born from a single act of cruelty, had blossomed into a legacy of compassion, a reminder that true worth lies not in appearances or status, but in the heart's capacity to heal, forgive, and uplift. As the city lights twinkled below, they knew their journey wasn't an end, but a beginning, a call to others to choose empathy over judgment every single day. The transformation at Elite Velocity Motors didn't remain confined to its glass walls. It sent ripples through Seattle's tight-knit community of luxury dealerships and beyond. Word of Miles Donovan's dramatic shift from a callous gatekeeper to a champion of fairness spread like wildfire, carried by whispers in boardrooms and posts on social media. Customers who'd once frequented the dealership for its exclusivity now returned for its newfound integrity, their stories amplifying the change. A local journalist, intrigued by the turnaround, published a feature titled "From Prejudice to Purpose: A Dealership's Redemption," thrusting Elite Velocity Motors into the spotlight as an unlikely symbol of progress.